The Silver Boys are back in town. Hello and welcome to my review of Doctor Who Series 12 Episode 8, The Haunting of Villa Diodati, written by Maxine Alderton and directed by Emma Sullivan. The Doctor, Yaz, Graham and Ryan crash gate Lord Byron's house party in 1816 on the night where Mary Shelley tells the tale of Frankenstein for the very first time. However, according to history, Percy Shelley should also be at this meeting, but isn't, and it's up to the Doctor and co to investigate. They soon discover that all is not well within the house, and they become trapped in spatial disturbances that are littered throughout the house. The Doctor discovers that a lone Cyberman is making its way from the future and back into history, seeking the Guardian. The Guardian is revealed to be the missing Percy Shelley, who found the Cyberium, an interface that affected his mind and turned him into an all-seeing supercomputer. The lone Cyberman extracts the Cyberium from Shelley and it takes it to the future to help them in the cyber wars. With this terrible decision made by the Doctor, it is up to her to fix the mistake that she has made. My expectations were fairly high for this story, as there was rumour going round that this episode would feature the Cybermen, but then about an hour before this episode, the Doctor Who BBC America Twitter account decided to spoil it. Nevertheless, when I heard we were getting another historical figure with Mary Shelley, the author of Frankenstein, and the Cybermen to go with it, it feels like a match made in heaven. The story of Frankenstein is about creating life from the undead, which is what the Cybermen are all about, prolonging life for as long as possible for survival. And Mary Shelley getting the idea for the iconic story from meeting the Cybermen seemed an inspired choice. Plus we had build-up in episode 5 regarding Jack's warning about not giving the lone Cyberman what it wants. However, even before the biggest selling point of the episode shows up, we have an intriguing and well-paced mystery that drips with atmosphere and is packed with great moments. Jodie Whittaker really shone in this episode, and there was a lot of grit and angst to her performance. Her confrontation with the Cybermen was fantastic. Despite the Cyberman having 10 times the strength of her physically, despite having a cyber gun aimed at her, she still came out on top as the Cyberman was resorting to anger and brute strength instead of rationale and reason like the Doctor. Whittaker really sold this, and you don't deny for a second that this Doctor was in complete control here. Though her best moment for me, however, came at the end, when she had to decide whether to give up the Cybermen what it wanted. The supercomputer inside Percy Shelley was causing him pain, and if he died, history would change and people of the future would die, which could potentially include her companions. She won't let that happen, and the grit of her performance was just incredible. When she said, "Sometimes even I can't win," my heart genuinely broke. This Doctor is trying to do good for the universe, but the stakes sometimes don't let her be good. For the first time, she was challenging her companions and their team dynamic. They don't make the decisions because she's at the top of this mountain range and feels she knows best. And with the Doctor now ignoring Jack's warning and giving the lone Cyberman what it wants, it's safe to assume that we haven't seen the last of this side of the Doctor. The finale will hopefully be about cleaning up the mess that she has created, and it'll be interesting to see if the dynamic between the companions and the Doctor changes for next week. The Doctor has opened up to them and told them the truth about the grittier aspects of her life rather than how wonderful she can be, and maybe this will link to one of the companions leaving at the end of the series. I'm just so excited to see what happens next for this Doctor. Our companions were really good this episode. First off, I'll start with Yaz. My favourite scene with her was her interaction with Claire, who wants to find letters from Lord Byron to know what he really thinks of her. I liked how they could both relate to the idea of being in awe of someone who is enigmatic to them, as the Doctor is a mysterious figure to Yaz, but they keep travelling together because Yaz is in awe of her and likes travelling with her, but not in a romantic way, let me make that clear. I'd argue it's more of a friendship than anything else, and looking at this series so far in context, I like how Yaz sat down and talked with Claire, a nice reminder that Yaz was in this situation only 3 years ago when she was at an uncertainty in her life. Being reminded of her traumatic events in the past episode really helps sell this for me, and I like how, for the most part, the conflict in each of the episode is still having an effect on our companions. It's a small moment, but I thought it was really good stuff. Similarly, I liked Ryan's moment with Mary Shelley when they were both on the piano and using Grace's wisdom of sticking with it and no reason not to try. Shelley can also relate to this, as she feels she'll never match the achievements of her parents, and after seeing the Cyberman, she will match those achievements and exceed them, with the creation of the story Frankenstein. I liked how Ryan was the one to suggest that we sacrifice Percy because we need to heed Captain Jack's warning about giving the Lone Cyberman what it wants, and it was one life against the entire future. The way he was feeling when the Doctor said it can't just be that was all in a series of looks, and I like how there was no dialogue. We could tell exactly what Ryan was feeling. Conflict, because usually they look for the best solution possible to save the universe, but here it felt very morally ambiguous and challenging to Ryan. I really liked Graham as well. It was nice to see him wander the house and be the one to discover the multiple levels and the spatial disturbances. It was very Castrovalva. We were completely in his shoes, feeling confused but also scared as well, as the haunted house setting really added a lot to it. The fact that he was mostly by himself really upped the stakes. With no one to help, he could have been trapped forever. But I liked how he tried to keep himself focused by making jokes. Sometimes when we're scared, we see the funny side of a situation to keep ourselves calm. Once again, Bradley Walsh was great and just knocked it out of the park. The supporting cast in this were pretty good as well. I really liked Lily Miller as Mary Shelley. Her scene with the Cyberman was fantastic. She sees the Cyberman as a deformed creature, and she shows it compassion. And if you've read the novel Frankenstein, you'll know that Frankenstein's monster just wanted compassion, despite its ugly appearance and being terrifying to all it encounters. The performance itself, I think, was fantastic, and I'm glad we had the Doctor meet another famous historical figure this series, as this era really does shine when it comes to history. Jacob Collins-Levy as Lord Byron was really good and had just the right balance, I think. His character was the right amount of sleazy and cockiness, but I think thanks to the performance he didn't come across as completely unlikable or annoying, and his referral to the Doctor as Mrs. Doctor was pretty funny. I liked how he was all alone by the episode, as the illusion of being this all-powerful Lord was shattered. Quite similar to how the illusion of the Doctor being this enigmatic figure was shattered because she told her companions this is how it is. A nice link there, I think. I really liked his reading at the end, describing the Doctor as the universe. Maybe what was said in this poem is foreshadowing as to what is to come in the finale. Lewis Rayner as Percy Shelley was really good, despite his small role. I do like how we were only introduced to him towards the end, but given that he was behind all the strange goings-on in the house, it made a lot of sense. His performance and pained expressions made me feel genuinely sorry for him. It's like he's been fighting a battle that was way out of his league, and his description of the cyber future made me all the more excited for the finale next week. I just wanted to give Percy a hug after all the troubles he went through. The supporting cast were just great this episode, really top-notch from me. Now let's talk about the biggest selling point of this episode, the Lone Cyberman. This Cyberman looked creepy as hell. The fact that you could see half of his face that is squashed into the metal suit, that was genuinely terrifying. Not to mention, the voice itself was really good. As much as I love Nick Briggs doing the voices, like he usually does, it was nice to hear the actor inside the suit deliver the voice, which I think is the first time this has happened since Silver Nemesis in 1988. Though I'll admit, it was a bit hard to hear what he was saying. Diction was kind of something that needed to be improved upon here. Now, it's ironic how the Cybermen are known for having their emotions drained out of them, but this one didn't, which I think made it all the more scary. It took joy in snapping the maid's neck, but surprisingly showed mercy to the baby, but only to tell it that its future will be replaced with cybernetics, almost taking a bit of joy and pride in that. That was scary. Plus, I like how Mary Shelley tried to reason with the Cyberman by appealing to its better nature, as it still looked like it had a soul inside it, reminding the lone Cyberman that in a past life it may have had children or loved someone, but it can't be reasoned with. It murdered anything that it thought to be weaker than them, and that is just terrifying. This might be up there with World Enough and Time and the Doctor Falls as the Cybermen's best appearance in the new series so far, though we'll wait and see what the finale does with them. If you look back at my Cybermen Stories ranked video, you'll know that I'm a big fan of the stories that show off the true horror of cyber conversion, and this episode I think had it in bucket loads. This Cyberman was scary and a force to be reckoned with, and I honestly can't wait to see what they do in the finale next week. The pale face also looked great underneath the silver suit, a visual reminder that the Cybermen were once us, but now they no longer are. It looked incredible, as if spending all that time in the suit had sucked the humanity out of the man inside. The Doctor giving the lone Cyberman what it wants, not gonna lie, I saw it coming from a mile off. There was no doubt in my mind that the Cyberman would be walking away with what it came for. Now, the reason I thought this was because if Jack had to warn the companions about not giving the Cyberman what it wants, that means they had to ignore his advice and give it to him anyway. Wibbly wobbly, timey wimey. My only concern with the Cybermen, however, is that I hope they're not going to be playing second fiddle to another story like they mostly do in the new series. And given that episode 10 is called The Timeless Children, and we have the question of the Roof Doctor and Gallifrey and maybe the Master popping up to resolve, it is looking likely that maybe they will be an afterthought if they are featured in episode 10. However, it's great that in at least this episode they got a kick-ass appearance. The Silver Boys are back in town and they're back with style. Production-wise, this episode looked fantastic. I loved the interior of the Georgian house. The sets looked incredible. Doctor Who always shines when it comes to history, and this is certainly no exception. Despite taking place in a large house, I liked how there was very little exterior scenes, as it gave the story a tremendous sense of isolation from the outside world and made it feel very claustrophobic. The lighting of this episode was also fantastic. The candlelit scenes added so much to the atmosphere, as did the lightning effects. They just looked so superb. It's a good thing there was a storm during the broadcast of this episode, as it really did add to the atmosphere. Emma Sullivan is probably my favourite director so far this series, and she's done an excellent job with all the episodes she's been given so far, and I hope she remains on board with any future episodes to come. Costume-wise, they all look great. Once again, I loved seeing the companions in Georgian and historical outfits, and they just really suit them. The rustic effect on the lone Cyberman also looked really good. The script gave us something new by showing a Cyberman with emotions, but the worn down and rusty look of it made it seem all the more creepy and scary, as if it's been looking for the Cyberium for years and they've now resorted to desperate measures to get it back by sending maybe an old design of the Cybermen and putting in a human with emotions, which is probably their greatest weakness. Now, we have got new looking Cybermen on the way, which I presume will be here for the finale, but the rusty Cybermen seem to be an indication of we're getting rid of the old variant to make way for the new one. Kind of like what they did in Nightmare in Silver. They got rid of the Pete's World Cybermen and made use of at the time, the new Cybermen. So, to conclude, The Haunting of Villa Diodati is a great mix of sci-fi and horror, with one of the series' most iconic enemies brought back in a terrifying new fashion. The episode works pretty well as a standalone story, but also makes a pathway for the finale with great ease. The guest cast are great, the villain is intimidating, the atmosphere is on point, the dialogue is on point, and for me it's the best story of Series 12 so far, and I just can't wait for the finale next week when the Cybermen will ascend above us all. Well everyone, that's all from me. Be sure to like, share and subscribe. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of this episode, and how did you think they handled the Cybermen? Did you like what they did with them? Or are you wanting something a bit more from the finale? Also, quick update, there won't be a review next week of Ascension of the Cybermen, because from what I understand, it is a two-parter. So what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to wait for episode 10 to air as well, and then just review both episodes as one big review. So you have that to look forward to. I'll see you all next time. Goodbye.